A 7-day pause in fighting between Israel and Palestine is due to expire in the coming hours. Reports say 10 hostages have been released by Hamas in exchange for 30 Palestinians released by Israel in the latest swap of persons. Altogether, roughly 100 hostages, including Israelis and foreign nationals, have been freed by Hamas and over 200 Palestinians by Israel. But the numbers are to be confirmed, including those still held by both sides, and it's uncertain if the deal can hold out. Meanwhile, the situation remains volatile as incidents of violence occurred in Israel and in the West Bank. On Thursday, China released a position paper calling for comprehensive ceasefire and an end to the fighting between Israel and Palestine. This has been a central message during China's rotating presidency in the United Nations Security Council, or UNSC, in November. What difference has that made on the ground? How can all relevant sides continue to work together to avoid what UN Secretary General calls a never-ending cycle of death and destruction? I'm pleased to be joined from Changsha in southern China by Teng Jianqun, Director of Diplomatic Studies Center at Hunan Normal University, and from North Carolina, the U.S., by Klaus Larres, Professor of History and International Affairs at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Gentlemen, welcome. So, Mr. Teng, let me go to you straight away. Are we halfway through the swap deal?
Yeah, I think that this is actually a very important step to have such a pause or ceasefire for the international community to give some mediation for this conflict. I think the two sides should think about the final result, not only for the humanitarian protection, but also for the mediation of international community in this regard. So I think this is a very important step for the international community and for the two sides.
And it's important for the conflict for the two sides to work to extend this deal, I understand. What China did, President Xi Jinping, as I mentioned, sent a congratulatory message to a United Nations special commemorative meeting in observance of the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. He, again, in that message, called for a more authoritative international conference for peace to be convened as soon as possible. Meanwhile, in the China position paper released on Thursday, China proposed 5 things. And Dr. Larres, I'm going to go to you. The 5 things includes implementing a comprehensive ceasefire and ending the fighting, protecting civilians, ensuring humanitarian assistance, enhancing diplomatic mediation, and seeking political settlement to help restore the two-state solutions. So what do you think of China's messages at this key point, Professor Larres?
Yes, hello. On the whole, these are very sensible points. Everyone wants civilians to be protected. Everyone wants more aid going into Gaza so that civilians can actually survive, get medical aid. And everyone wants a permanent solution. So the return to the two-state solution for the Israel-Palestinian problem would be desirable. The problem is, of course, how to get there. The same applies regarding a ceasefire. We all, I think, want a ceasefire and peace in Gaza and in the whole of the Middle East, of course. But the problem with a permanent ceasefire at this stage is that it means that Hamas would be victorious and the military strength of Hamas would still be there. And then, of course, the danger of yet another attack like on October 7 would be there as well. And I think that needs to be discussed. This is a real dilemma. If we have a permanent ceasefire, we may see Hamas continuing to attack Israel, and no one wants that either. So how to overcome that, I think is a big question of the day.
China, of course, tried as much as it could to look deeper into the issue. China chaired a high-level meeting on the issue at the UNSC Wednesday that's attended by some 20 foreign ministers of the region and beyond. It was the first open meeting since mid-November when China helped a unifying resolution was adopted on the issue for the first time for a long time. And the high-level meeting was also the first to feature foreign ministers from across the region and beyond. And many of them spoke, in addition to council members, together with Palestine and Israel. Mr. Teng, why is China so keen on getting as much done as possible and having these ministers express their voices?
Yeah, China should be the best moderator in this conflict because China has been accepted by all sides at this moment for the mediating. For example, the recent visit by Arabic and Islamic cooperation organization just gave a visit to Beijing. I think the first stop Beijing just to show the interests of the countries concerned. They would like to take China as a platform. Actually, from early this year, we have witnessed the effort made by China to promote the peace.
This is very interesting because, sorry for
Yeah.
interrupting, Mr. Teng, because some people are saying China practically has no influence on the issue. It's the United States who supplies all the weapon, is the Jewish people, the Jewish influence, and China doesn't have historic or traditional influence on the issue. Why do you see China better positioned than many other players in being possibly facilitating peace in the future?
I think all the players in this game have already realized the importance of China because China's position, because of China's influence there. Actually, in recent years, we have witnessed the increase of the influence in regional affairs. For example, the moderation of the normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran early this year. This is actually a good beginning for China to put more effort in peace and stability for the Middle East.
Mr. Larres, what is your take? How do you see China potentially playing a positive role, if not an immediately effective role, in helping bring the situation under control?
China has indeed become an important player in the Middle East. It is good to convene a conference of foreign ministers. It certainly can't do any harm. Regarding Israel, however, there's very little influence of any foreign power on Israel. And the only power who has some sort of, and I think only a degree of influence over Israel is the United States. The reason is because the US finances a lot of the Israeli military.
Well, exactly. Maybe that's precisely why some imagination needs to be had to the situation, because the situation is not sustainable so far.
This is very true. If China had some influence on Israel, I would say, yes, please use the Chinese influence to influence the Israelis to conduct a war which is much more observant of civilian casualties. And that is, of course, a problem so far, that it is a war which has led to 15,000 civilians which are dead now, and largely women and children. That needs to be prevented. And I think anyone who could help to prevent that, to improve that situation, would be more than welcome indeed.
It's very interesting because, people question China's influence on the issue. But during China's presidency, as I said, a high-level meeting was called. Another historic, I would say, a very significant development was the UN Security Council was able to adopt a resolution 2712, in November. That was the first resolution adopted by the UNSC after the current round of the conflict broke out in early October, and also the first one adopted on the issue in 7 years. That resolution called for urgent and extended humanitarian pauses and corridors in Gaza for a sufficient number of days to allow full, rapid, safe and unhindered access for UN agencies and partners without condemning anyone. Mr. Teng, how do you look at the approach China is taking to the issue?
Yeah, this is a very important step, as we all understand that China has no specific interest. China not like to be the dominant player, power in the Middle East. China's position is only to establish a fair and square, platform for all the parties concerned to have political and diplomatic negotiations for the conflict. So I think this is a core part for China to be interested in, and China will continue such a momentum. We have no specific interest, and also we would not like to be the dominant player on one side or on another.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting, Mr. Larres. Let me give you the final chance of answering a question. U.S. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield said the pause during the high-level meeting that China chaired, the pause has provided a glimmer of hope. She said, we need a two-state solution, as this is the only way to end the cycle of violence once and for all. Let's work together. How do you look at the attitude of the U.S. ambassador?
Absolutely. I think this two-state solution is the way forward, and we all know that. And I think in the last resort, it doesn't really matter whether it is China, whether it's the United States, whether it's Egypt or Qatar who brings progress to the situation. And I think the dilemma, which I mentioned before, is that we have to put a stop to the violence by Hamas. We have to put a stop to that terror organization being able to attack anyone in the region, including Israel, of course.
Thank
and
you.
then afterwards we go to a two-state solution. And who is instrumental behind that doesn't really matter. I think the solution
Okay, we have
important.
to leave it there. Thank you, Dr. Larres. I guess a lot of people will say the person behind it matters, but we don't have the time for it. Mr. Teng, thank you very much, and Mr. Larres, as always. I have to leave it there. As usual, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Li Xin in Beijing. On behalf of the whole team, thank you for watching. You've got the point.